live in the dungeon. This is the Dream Warrior Review. I'm Kurt Thomas.
I'm Mick Strawn.
Storytime with Mick. Storytime with Mick and George. 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 And George.
Oh, jeez. Let's see here. Oh, how about this one? I once shot a film we shot on location in Pittsburgh. It was 46 nights we shot from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. in one of these, what do you call them, like a dirt mall, you know, like it was an old rundown movie theater that had like vendors selling like beads and stuff.
Oh,
and,
right, okay.
Yeah, during the day, and,
right.
You know, and at night we went in and we took over and we were shooting this horror movie, and 46 nights we shot. And we got to a point, it was this really fucked up movie about snuff movies and snuff movie audiences. But we got to the part where 500 people are all locked into a movie theater and they all kill each other.
Oh, man.
As they do.
And you know, the effects that we zoomed in on were, you know, that we focused, really, we pulled off a miracle because we must have had 50 or 60 of them planned for one night. It was the definition of Gorilla Mick. You would have been like, holy fuck. Like, we had people riding golf carts through this place. I mean, pulling shit off right and left. I was shooting on everything from like cell phones of the time to 16 millimeter, 8 millimeter VHS. Like, I was shooting like 9 different formats we were shooting. And I had sets going all over the place. When we got to this part, but we must have had 50 effects planned to pull off one night. Well, the place, it got down to like negative 19 degrees. All of the hot water went out. There was no hot water in the entire facility, which, as you know, really doesn't work well with blood.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
All of our armatures froze. Everything went wrong. And I think we pulled off like 10 out of 50. Yeah. And it was a nightmare. It was an absolute nightmare, you know. And like we didn't have budget, so we had a buddy who worked at a radio station. So I had an announcement made saying I was shooting a movie down at this place. If you wanted to be an extra in the big kill scene, come on down. So we end up having like half the city of Pittsburgh come down. Half of them are drunk.
Yeah.
And we're like, okay, you have to swing this axe at this guy. We'd have people be like, all right, just give me the axe, man. Be like, okay, we're going to give you a different effect. You're going to hit a guy with a potato.
Here's a soft one. This is a foam potato.
Yeah. This bowl of mashed potatoes you're going to throw.
That's right.
You know, and it was a nightmare. It was an absolute nightmare, you know. But we got the movie done. And, you know, there's parts of it that are embarrassing as hell to this day, but there's parts of it that I still am super proud of. So,
we should have reviewed that one.
So
I don't think you can find it. It was before like all of this fancy, all the kids with the internets and the Facebooks and
because I worked on a lot of films that just went away.
Yeah, I mean, you know,
especially before like 85 or so. Like I worked on from 80 to 85. I worked, like there was a film in there called Chattanooga Choo Choo. I don't think Chattanooga Choo Choo ever existed in real life.
And I know it did because I remember the case from when I had worked at a video store when I was a teenager.
Really? With the cartoon, that horrible cartoon?
Yeah, but it was like a weird, like political style cartoon with
that
political. Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about, and like big faces and huge teeth and like the whole thing.
Oh yeah, God, I worked on so many of them that you know, like that was one that kind of disappeared, but there were also some of them that absolutely were completely for foreign distribution and stuff.
Well, yeah, and that's what happened to the screening. Nobody bought it in the United States because it was too graphic, and So we got some weird European deal on it.
Right. Yeah. You know,
I don't know what the fuck ever happened to it.
The thing is there were, if you worked in Hollywood, there were so many films that were being done there just to have the stamp that they were made in the USA. They would never be distributed in the USA, but they were made there. And then they would voice over, do a bunch of voiceover and send it all around the world. Yeah. That was kind of primarily kind of what I started on it, and I'm not even things that I can, even vaguely remember. I remember I learned about breakaway bats on one of those films. An 80-year-old lady is supposed to be hit over the head with a baseball bat. And I said, and they said, well, we need somebody to make the bats. And I was running this little tiny prop shop literally running it out of a storage unit where I would go in there and take the light bulb out and put a little plug-in thing and then open the door so I had light, and I would build shit, right? And I built this bat, a whole bunch of balsa wood bats. And the prop maker goes, well, those are great, but we're going to need you standing by for them because we need your expertise. I go, well, this is like 1980, maybe 3, and I expertise. I mean, I knew what a bat was shaped like, and I knew what balsa wood was. But so I got the bats to set and knocked out an old lady because I didn't realize that you had to take a balsa wood bat and you had to cut it up into pieces. You had to cut it so it was just barely hanging, right? I didn't know that. I thought balsa wood was balsa wood, and you just and so I said, oh no, it's perfect. It's this is good. Oh, it's going to be great. It'll just fall apart. Just knocked her out.
Oh man, that really happened. You really did that?
It really honest to God happened to me. It was Ruth Gordon's stand-in. Knocked her out. I was like, well, I feel really bad. And you know what? What can you do? Right? I mean, the hospital, and I just kind of stood there on set, like examining the bat, like there had to be something wrong with this bat, right? I was like, no,
the other ones are fine. It must just be this one.
God damn it! Yeah.
Let me take these all back to my shop real quick and figure out what the hell's going on.
The stunt guy, and I swear to God, I mean, the stunt guy, this was maybe his second film, right? So he kind of pulls me aside and he goes, it's probably going to be a good idea for you to take your razor blade and you make a whole bunch of little cuts in there like this, and that way, when you hit them with the point of the balsa wood is not that it's going to break. You're going to make the break. It's that the rest of the bat isn't going to hurt somebody as it goes by. You understand? I was like, oh, so I just knocked out an old lady right out of the bat. Wow, that's good. But you know what? It was like probably just the same quality as ThanksKilling.
Right.
So who would have known? It was probably the most realistic shot out of the whole fucking film.
It was realistic.
Because we knocked her out. Yeah.
We had I did a movie and we had a shovel, a shovel situation.
I'm sorry. Okay.
And it was a prop shovel, and it was the whole thing, and it was all well and good. And the actor using it he spent a little bit of time as like a pro wrestler at one point, so he was really good with the theatrics and all that other stuff. And the other actor, there was some stuff going on between them at the time off camera, and so the guy wielding the shovel he was professional, so he didn't, he did his job and he sold the gag of it all. But the way that it came down on the other guy, he was wearing a baseball cap. The way it came down on the other guy, it hit the little button on the top of his cap in just such a way that it,
Ow!
It must have left a dent in his head for like a minute. I mean, literally, we didn't even tweak the sound in the movie. We just used the actual sound of the thing hitting his head. It didn't break or nothing. Like, it didn't do anything it was supposed to do. It just made this horrible sound, and it about knocked him the fuck out.
Oh, man.
I'm sorry. Boy, that just brings back to mind so many different situations.
Yeah. I mean, the shit that we used to pull off on no budget, I mean, like, we used to really, and we talked about this the first time we talked about how, right. It was like your buddies are off doing something and they're trying something, and now you're going to try to one up it a little bit, and that whole thing. We did another movie where this girl hangs herself, and nobody on the crew in the effects department was confident in their rigging abilities.
Oh, man.
So they're all nervous. And then nobody on the grips is like, I'm not doing it, right? And so I had this young guy working for me who was out of the military, and he's like, I can rig that up. And the producers are about having a fit. They're like, who in the hell is this? He's like a PA. You're going to let this PA? And I was like, first of all, don't ever talk to him like that. He went through more shit than you've ever been through, even though he's younger than you. And if he says he can rig it safe, I believe he can rig it safe. And so he rigged up this thing, and we hung this girl. And I'm telling you, it was this guy and me. We're smiling the whole time, like everything's totally normal and fine. And it was, but for the entire crew, like, I was literally the only guy on the entire crew who trusted this dude and wasn't worried at all. And when that rope dropped, man, like, I don't know, 65 people gasped.
Yeah.
And it was everybody, me and the dude who did it thought that he fucked it up. And I got to give it to her. She really sold it, and she really convinced the crew that it worked and that it was a big mistake. And I called cut, and she started laughing, and like 5 or 6 people literally walked off set that day. I mean, they came back, but they walked off because they were so upset by it.
I when we did Nightmare on Elm Street 3, and we ran into a whole other problem, is that an extra who wants a bump, like a danger bump, right, will do anything. Absolutely anything. And so we had this scene where all these people are hanging at the very end. All these kids are hanging at the beginning of Nightmare on Elm Street 3, right? And so we had to have at least 5 of them actually hanging, because of the way that the shot was rigged, and so we tried for a dozen, and we just had no fucking idea. Yeah, right. You're right. Exactly. And the thing is that, everybody had a ladder. I got to tell you, it took so many people to do it, and it was one of those things where you kept throwing more and more people into it. And, and the longer it took to get the shot, to get it set up, you had people pulling ladders, that their only job was to pull a ladder out of the way. Right. And people whose only job was to make sure that they were, that they were hydrated, right? And then we realized that the extras wouldn't say anything because they didn't want to be taken out of the shot, and so they were passing out. So we had 2 out of the 5 that we were looking at that were actually hanging. So they actually passed out, and so we had to replace them. But when we were replacing them, the people that we put in, they didn't want to say anything, right? So we had somebody that the job was to go around and poke them with a stick to make sure that they were still moving. It was the weirdest thing. So eventually I think we had like 35 people involved in just trying to get that part of the shot. So here's the great thing about it is that just recently, and I mean just like weeks ago, Roy Wagner, who shot that, is doing the school thing, right? He's going back and I'm advising, and we did that sequence of shots from the beginning of Nightmare on Elm Street 3. We did the same sequence of shots again, only shot them with an iPhone 9 or an iPhone 11, right?
Yeah.
The most recent one, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so we're all set up, and I'm trying to like get them through, how the stages were set up in order to do this long hallway shot and all the rest of this, and how we flagged off the hallways, put headers down, so that when you were doing that long shot on a hallway, you didn't see off to the stage and stuff like that. And it, the real kind of 105, like classroom 101, not 101, but 105 designing, and and then I go up, and then I go, and this is how we need to do, this is how you need to do the hanging thing. And I started to explain it, and the guy goes, nah, he says, we're going to do that as an optical. We're not as fucking crazy as you guys were back then. And I go, wait a minute. Now, hold on. Now, you're trying to prove, I said, you're trying to prove that you could do the same shot with an iPhone as we did back then you gotta fucking do the same fucking shot as we did with an iPhone. He says, nah, we don't want to.
Yeah.
I said,
I'm telling you, man, it's all different these days. Like, you had to be fucking, the part of you had to be fucking insane to try to make.
You had to be fucking mental to do that. But not only that, you had to get like-minded mental people to help you do it.
Yeah. Yeah, for real. I mean, it was absolutely nuts. I just, the shit that me and other crew members have done over the years to get shots and to, it's crazy. Like, running down the middle of streets and like laying down in traffic to stop cars and, like just dumb shit. Like, I wouldn't do that today in 2019. No way would I run into traffic. But back when I was coming up, like, when you're PA and they tell you to lock it down, and if you don't lock it down, you're never going to fucking work for them again. You run into fucking traffic and you lay down and cars stop.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
And then you stand up with a walkie in your hand and you go, sorry. Sorry. Somehow.
Yeah.
And people are like, you're insane. I mean,
Exactly. And the thing was to get the shot, shot.
But then what it did was it kind of fucked me up when I got, started directing and everything. It was like I would need stuff done and I would look at people and I'd say, well, just go do it. And they'd be like, well, that's unsafe.
I'm not going to do that.
And I'd say, well, what the fuck are you talking about unsafe? Like, I'll go do it right now. And, there's the first AD and the producer going, no, you're directing. Get back here. It's unsafe.
So, Kurt.
Yes.
You've worked for me when I was doing first AD stuff on Vengeance.
I'm trying to forget.
Yeah. Did I ever ask you to do anything insane?
If you did, I didn't care.
Yeah,
I have that mentality already. I'm already crazy, so.
Yeah, so.
But no, totally.
I remember we had a shot we had to get, and we didn't know how to get it, so we strapped a ginormous fucking airy 16 millimeter. We were shooting on 16. Huge airy and lights and like 700 pounds of grips and crew on a golf cart.
Right.
There's a guy hanging off the back of the golf cart with like, fucking a ratchet strap through his belt loops, and and he's holding on to the operator.
Well, now that I think about it, it was pouring rain, and I was laying on top of an electric box trying to figure out how to turn it on and off by unplugging it.
Yeah, that's.
I mean, but,
you were on one of them, and I was on the other one. That's right. You didn't even. You see, the thing is under a normal circumstance, you would look at that box and you would look at the rain and you go, I'm not going to get in between electricity and water. No way. There's nothing that we're ruling. Okay, I get it.
Yeah, I got this one. You get that one.
That's it. You get that one. Right?
Yeah. All it takes is an angry grip to come up to you and go, "You really want him to call Grace? I'm fucking hungry."
Yeah, that's right.
And you're like, I'm on it.
Just get that, grab that bucket. We're shooting his chest. You can get underneath there and take a bucket, and you can pee in the bucket. This happened to me, by the way. And I would say, well, what am I going to do with it? So, and then the thing is I'm thinking, like, I'm the fucking production designer, and it just came down to, we were doing an after shoot, right? And so there just isn't enough people. And so I was the one that had to go and pull his pants off. Because, he's strapped, and it's like, "Come and get him, bitch," is being written across his chest. Yeah. And I had to make it so he could pee. And so somebody had to do it,
Well, that was worth it. I mean, come on, man.
That's exactly the thing. On a movie set, man, somebody's got to do it.
Somebody's got to do it. That's right.
There's no room for pride or ego at the end of the day,
Well, I do have to say, one time I was working on Kazam. My opus.
Your
right?
opus, exactly.
Maximum, my opus, Kazam, and there was a part. Shaq brought his dog in one time, and the dog shit in the middle of the set. and I'm not kidding. It was a full blown union show, and holy shit, we found out. The procedure in order to, like, everybody in every union went, "Nah, we aren't doing that." I mean, dog shit on the that's animal people. And I said, "Yeah, but we don't have any animal people on the set. It's Shaq's fucking dog, right? So there was a dog, right? There was a dog shit in the middle of the street, and everybody was arguing about it. And I finally just went out on the street. We were by Jefferson, down there just right off of Los Angeles. So let me tell you, it only cost me $50 to have some guy off the street go in and grab the dog shit off, take it, and throw it away. While everybody was still arguing about what department it was. Is it a prop? Heck no. It's
Is it set deck? If it's not animal and it's not green, then it's got to be set deck.
I still to this day, yeah, that's right. I still to this day, and I was art director on that, and I say to this day that was still craft service.
That's when you have the script supervisor come up and say, "Actually, in 3 days, we're shooting a dog shit scene."
That's right.
So you might want to get props involved.
You might want to get that back. It's in continuity now. Yeah, it's in continuity now. Put a little piece of yellow tape around it.
Fuck, dude, it's so funny because, like, if anybody who's never seen it hears people who've done it talk about it, we just sound fucking weird.
Insane. Absolutely insane. Yeah.
But my favorite is when people come to visit the set who've never been on a set, and they see it and they see the chaos that ensues, and and they're getting, like, almost pushed out the way, even though they're trying to be the more they try to be out of the way, the more in the way they are. The more
in the way they are.
And then at the end of the day, you'll talk to them and they'll be like, "Jesus, man, I got there and I just thought it was the most chaotic thing I've ever seen. And when I left, I realized that every single person knew what every single other person was doing at every single minute."
Yeah, and it is really freaky to be around people who do it professionally, because it is the height of a choreographed, super expensive dance. I mean, I mean, your first AD is there on set with second ADs and PAs circling him to make sure things get in and out of there like that. And to watch one that's really, really well choreographed, it looks kind of boring, right? Because it's just these people coming, just calmly walking in and out, but boy, there's a point, where the camera's looking. There's always something coming in and going out and coming in and going out and coming in and going out, and it's here's the thing: there's no single thing in filming that is super complicated, right? Nope. I mean, it's a bunch of easy steps, but it's like algebra. It's a bunch of easy steps, but you're only using addition, subtraction, multiplication. So you're only using the 4: addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division, and that's it, right? And yet, when they get really complicated and they get huge, you're solving these huge equations that have so many different factors in them. That's where the complications come in filming, is like all of those decisions that have to be made that only have one equal sign, and the equal sign is right there in front of the camera.
Right. Yeah. Exactly right. And for anybody who's more tech savvy than film savvy, it's also, you think about it in terms of like computer programming, right? Like there's no single part of programming something for a computer or database or the internet or whatever that's difficult, but making them all work together it's like this weird composition. And then
to make it efficient, and to make it create something that is not clunky and is not repeating itself, and is not not all those metaphors is really hard.
If one like little comma or semicolon is out of place, the whole thing falls apart.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it really is like that, and it's the most beautiful chaos I've ever had the privilege to be lucky enough to.
Well, I can't remember the guy that used to call it rarefied air, and I've heard this before by several people, that there was a producer that used to say that the air around shooting films is rarefied air.
Yeah, I told you.
You told me that. You told me that, right? And I was like, oh man, I'm gonna grab that one and run with it, because that's absolutely true.
I wish I could take credit for it. A producer friend of mine said that to me one day when I got a pretty big deal pushed through. He gave me a big congratulations, and it really meant a lot to me coming from him. And he told me, he said, you've breathed the rarefied air now,
And what were you guys smoking at the time?
Camel Lights.
Okay, right, okay, yeah, okay. So, well, as far as I can tell, this is what a Dream Warrior review is, my friend.
Yeah, this is like the perfect episode, actually, because it story times, we reviewed a movie, we just kicked ass the whole way, basically. And I didn't really do much work, and that's the best episode for me.
Hey, listen though. This time I did everything I could to include you.
No, that's great. See what he's referring to is we had William Butler on our show, and he was our first guest ever. And I sat here, listened to them interview themselves. So Mick was interviewing himself, William Butler was interviewing himself, and I was sitting there eating a sandwich. But it was a really interesting interview.
But Kurt, the real question is, what kind of sandwich?
Yeah.
I usually go with turkey, and which relates to this episode.
And
there you are, right there, bringing it fucking circle.
Full circle, baby.
There you go. That's the end, folks. Thanks for coming by.
Yep.
Well, guys,
I think that's
it.
Us. Yeah, we did a good job. I mean, you guys did a good job. Yeah. I don't know if I did a good job. You guys did a great job.
I'm glad you guys are happy.
Thanks for joining us on the Dream Warrior Review podcast. Don't forget to tell your friends about us, follow us, and, of course, like us. We can be found on Podbean, which is an amazing app, YouTube, Stitcher, Alexa on any pod, iTunes, Google Play. We're on Twitter as well, at DW Review, and, of course, Facebook. You can find us there. You can also email us at dreamwarriorreview@gmail.com.
Why should you care?